Welcome to the Be Yourself at Work cast with me, the founder of Be Yourself at Work, Liz Villani. In this podcast, I really want to explore expressing yourself, seeing work as an opportunity in your life to be you, to make a difference, to feel like you, and to express who you are, rather than just something that you do to make money, to pay the bills and those things. Expressing yourself at work is so important to make yourself happy. But not only is it about you, other people will also benefit from your energy and your support and your character and the things that you do, particularly when you're being your unique self. So, in this session, I want to explore why it is that traditional workplaces can make us feel a little bit like a square peg in a round hole. What is it that actually gets in the way of us being ourselves? What is it that stops us from being ourselves because we feel a bit different? And actually look at the real us and how we can use some tools and techniques to free ourselves from conformity, from holding ourselves back, and discover what makes us unique. What is it that is different about us? And how can we have the courage and ability to express ourselves and make our work an expression of us, no matter what job role that we do? So sit back and relax and reflect and think about who you are for a moment. Because actually, your difference is one of your greatest assets. We often, I know, because of the work that we do with thousands of people around the world, we often think that it's only us that has this negative voice occasionally or all the time inside of us that's challenging who we are. And actually, it's really easy to think, well, I'm no different from anybody else. We also have aspects of our psyche and our experience and our journey in work that mean that we can conform and feel like we have to fit in, feel like we need to prove ourselves and our competence, and our imposter syndrome and our self-doubt. And all of those things can add up to us withholding who we are. So I want to pick some of that apart in today's Be Yourself at Work cast. Okay, so people buy people, and they will buy you. I often think about when I first went for my initial job interview when I left university, and a really strong piece of advice that I was given: Liz, just be yourself. And it was one of the greatest moments where I really thought, you know what, actually, everyone else really is taken. And I really actually, we might all get the same results on the maths test and the verbal reasoning test and the same scores on the psychometrics and the assessment center. But actually, it's me that is going to make this difference. And I really want to encourage the world, all of us, to recognize that we are different from each other and that that difference is an asset. So people do buy people and they will buy you. Now, we talk at Be Yourself at Work about being your best self. So people probably won't buy into you if you're being negative, if you're being unkind, if you're talking behind people's backs, if you're always the one that's moaning, or you're always the one that's challenging and negative and disruptive and those things. So it's important when we think about how we express our uniqueness at work that we see it through a positive lens. Because we are all positive. We just need to make that choice and explore our power. And I want to touch on that in today's Be Yourself at Work cast as well. So people really will buy you. You probably underestimate that. And you probably do feel different. I've certainly found over the decades that I've worked with people in their values, when you think about who people are, that actually we're all softies. It's in some place, in some within us, and we almost feel like we have to be stronger and appear to be more direct, if you like, when we're at work. I hate that term, assertive, because it always makes me think that we're putting on a mask rather than actually being ourselves. And sometimes ourselves can feel quite vulnerable, quite touched, quite intuitive, quite kind, and actually it's those aspects of you that probably the people outside of work love you for. And yet we withhold them. We've all worked for people who are perhaps a little bit too direct, a little bit too sharp, a little bit too competence focused. And actually, when we see them outside of work, sometimes with their friends or their family, they can appear to be much warmer and much more engaged. That's because they're being them. So it's really important to recognize that we are all different. We can feel different, but there's also a journey that we can go on to almost become more bland and move away from using our uniqueness and expressing ourselves as us. And that really starts at quite a young age. We can really feel like particularly when we first get into the job, the job world, we start to work, that we need to fit, we need to be liked, we need to appear to be competent, we need to look like the people around us that appear to be succeeding. And so, we'll tend to mold ourselves to fit. We'll have a certain persona that we develop as a character at work, that is our work selves, if you like. And that can be picked up from all kinds of areas. The challenge with that is that apart from the fact that we might, be able to win Oscars by being great actors and actresses, is that if you feel like you need to be or appear somebody else, you're essentially telling yourself, I'm not good enough as I am. And that causes imposter syndrome. So automatically, we're doing that to ourselves. We start to feel like an imposter because the real us is hiding in the shadows while we portray somebody else. And then we can start to doubt who we are. We can lack confidence. And those things can help us to kind of retreat. So when we talk about express yourself at work, it's really hard to do that when you lack confidence and that voice in your head is going, you know what, Liz, you're not quite good enough. So just shut up and hold back. So there's this cycle within all of us that we need to break. And it starts with the conformity to fit, the conformity to appear to be professional, to be competent, to be liked. That's where we need to begin. And that's a choice. It's a decision, but it's a decision that has huge benefits to us, particularly when we really, really, really focus on our best selves. So you can't do this work and succeed by expressing yourself and those things unless it's through the positive context at work. It's not an opportunity listening to this Be Yourself at Work cast to sort of behave in any way, which way you like and upset people. It's about understanding that you are different, that that difference is an asset and that you are an amazingly unique person. And when you can really just take steps to believe that it's okay to be unique and different, then everything starts to change. So if you start to play and start to almost sit on your shoulder. I often talk to our clients, and say, instead of just choosing to change overnight, just start to watch yourself. Okay. So who are you being in this day, in this meeting, in this exchange, in this customer interaction? Watch who you're being. Start to recognize your own patterns and behaviors. Naturally, then you'll start to be more self-aware. And then you'll probably get a little bit braver. And when you get braver, you could think about certain aspects of your character and then have a play. So often it can help to think about outside of work. So the vast majority of us, we know this because we measure it, over 75% of us are more us outside of work than inside of work. So think about you outside of work. Were you with other people? You might be with your friends, your family, in a sports field, whatever. What do you like there? And pick a couple of things that you don't bring to work, the character traits, the values. So maybe, it's playfulness. Maybe you've got a really rip-roaring sense of humor. Maybe you actually love being the center of attention and you're the one that kind of organizes everybody and expresses yourself in that zone. Maybe actually you're pretty stable and quiet and reflective outside of work, and yet in work you feel like you have to be louder and have a voice. Pick whatever it is, it doesn't matter, an aspect of yourself outside of work, reflect on it, and then start to bring more of that aspect in. So if you're the reflective, stable listener outside of work that's actually quite calm and peaceful, bring aspects of that into your character at work. And if people think you've gone mad, just share with them, I'm exploring bringing more of my calmer character into my role right now. So I'm going to take a second to listen and then I'll respond rather than, jumping in perhaps, which I've done in the past. And people will be quite surprised and positive in my experience. They'll really encourage you and ask you more about it. So whether it's playfulness, whether it's creativity, whether it's calm, it's patience, maybe it's a really lovely vulnerability and kindness. Whatever it is, choose one aspect of you and start to explore. Watch yourself, watch your behaviors in a positive way. Just be the observer, and then start to sprinkle in little drops of this part of you, and notice what happens. Try not to make it about you. Just notice what happens to the people around you and the impact that you have when you are more this part of you. Start to express yourself in a more unique way by being you and bringing in this aspect of you. And when you do that, the second stage of thinking about expressing yourself is about challenging the way that you see work in your life. What is the narrative of work for you? Is it just something you have to do to pay the bills? Do you have 3 or 4 different jobs, a side hustle? What is it that you really love about work? Or is work actually something that is toil, is something that you wouldn't do if you didn't have to? Because if it is, that's what I would really encourage you to start to think about changing. Work is, we spend so much time at work. I know a lot of people say this a lot of the time, but they're so right. Work really is a big part of your life, and you have so many choices. And it doesn't matter what you do for your job role. As long as you're competent, you're aligned with the organization and their mission and purpose and the things that you do. As long as you're supportive and human within that, you talk to people, you don't hold it all within, and you have that positive behavior that I've talked about throughout this Be Yourself at Work cast. The how you do your role is then completely in your control and permission to be you. It's a bit like, the chefs say you could give a group of people a couple of eggs and an omelette pan and some salt and pepper, and every omelette would look and taste different. So whether you're a taxi driver or you run a restaurant or a pub, or you work in a shop or a school, or you fly an aeroplane, or you work in an office, whatever you do, actually the way you do it, the how of what you do, as long as you're being competent and positive and aligned and communicative, it's completely down to you. And when you free yourself from the conformity of the how and start to bring in more of your own expression, wow, things will really start to feel positive. They just, when you allow yourself the freedom, and freedom, when I talk about freedom, it's not about being trusted or having autonomy or whatever by your boss or the people you work with. Real freedom comes from the inside. You let go of what people think about you. You stop worrying and overthinking and procrastinating. You know who you are. You work on your confidence rather. You know your values, and you take those unique aspects of you and you enjoy them. You enjoy being them. You enjoy being different. And when you do that, you can really amplify the experience of being you. So see work as an opportunity to make a difference and experience being yourself, rather than just something that you have to do or society dictates to you. Whatever happens, you have the power and the choice to really decide to be yourself and express yourself at work.